a credit union is run by volunteers, that we have a volunteer board of directors, where a bank has corporators and trustees. If you have a $5 member account, then you are basically an owner of the credit union. You have a right to vote at meetings and so on and so forth. Whereas a bank, you're just a customer. So you actually take ownership of the credit union by becoming a member of the credit union.
We'll call the meeting, the Spencer Finance Committee meeting of April 8th, 2014 to order. It's about 7:07 p.m. And this is not the regular meeting, this is a special meeting, but tonight we are meeting particularly to review the warrant for the annual town meeting. So, first, the minutes of the March 24 joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen and the April 1, 2014 meeting, which was last Tuesday night, the public hearing.
Accept that as
Motion, okay, motion to approve both sets of minutes. Second?
Second.
Any discussion, questions, changes? Okay. All right, all in favor?
I just had a question.
Sure.
Dr. Malvey, I think it was the 24th, March 24th meeting.
Yeah.
He said he had a district improvement plan that he was working on, but he would be willing to share that. And I just wondered if you received a copy. Did he send you anything or tell you where it's posted?
No, he didn't.
Rather owe it to you than cheat out of it.
No, he didn't.
Okay.
But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what's on the school website. I didn't even look.
Okay. Maybe we can ask him. I guess I can ask him.
Yep. All right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. Correspondence, I have two things here from the the Association of Town Finance Committees. This is the President's letter that you can all read. I'm not sure what's in it, but you can, I just opened it. And then the second thing is that there's a workshop Thursday, May 1 in Boston, Thursday, May in Amherst, and Thursday, May 15 in Marion. 3 educational opportunities. No charge, but ask that you pre-register. Other local officials are welcome to attend. Presentation, 11:45 to 1 p.m. Presentation Q&A. Legislative budget update is in Boston on May 1. Capital planning focus on regional school issues. Developing and implementing a capital plan is challenging enough, but add the expenses from your regional school budget and can be impossible. This session will focus on how to develop a strong capital plan while meeting regional school obligations. This is Thursday, May 8th at the Amherst Town Hall from 5:30. Starts at 5, check-in sandwiches, beverages, ends at 7. And Thursday, May 15, Marion Music Hall, 5 p.m. Check-in, 5:30 to 7, long-range financial planning. This workshop will dive into a long-term 3 to 5 year examination of projected revenues and expenditures, sample spreadsheets, etc. So, if anybody's interested, I'll pass these around, and if anybody's interested, go ahead. Okay. Julie, do you have anything to report for the school committee?
No, there's been no
Oh, yeah,
further
right.
meetings. There was
Nothing,
supposed to be
nothing
one
since-
tonight, but it's rescheduled to the 15th.
For next Tuesday, yeah. Okay. Right, tonight was a regular meeting, but they postponed it. All right, so the next thing on the agenda is the ATM warrant recommendations that you have, either you have them electronically or in hard copy. So we may as well get started.
Okay, in addition to that, I have obviously the projector and the document is on the screen. So I sent you last week I went over with you the draft warrant, missing some numbers, and the Board of Selectmen finalized it last night. So the warrant, they set the articles, they vote to set the articles, and then also any ballot questions for the election. Those are on here as well. I'll go over those in a second. And then now it's your job. It's been filed with the town clerk. And it's been posted by the constable. So now the next step is this committee voting the recommendations on the articles as they've been set by the Board of Selectmen, and then also any petition articles, which there is one that are on here as well. From that, we'll print out, we'll make booklets for town meeting available that will include all the articles, will include the budget, and will also include your recommendations. So we'll have those printed over the next couple of weeks and have them available for town meeting, and even several days ahead of town meeting. And of course, we'll put all the information as we've been doing, we'll put it on the website so everybody has access to that as well. Okay. So the first page of the warrant is also a notification regarding the election, which first page has all the available seats. So the time has come and passed in order to pull papers and submit papers, and that's all already gone by. And then the next page is 3 questions that will be on this year's ballot. Okay, we've been talking about these, most of these all along, and I can get into specifics in terms of the budget and any questions in terms of possible outcomes if anybody has any. But so, and you don't necessarily, in the past, this committee doesn't make recommendations on ballot questions. Okay, you can certainly speak about them at town meeting and make presentations there, but you have never formally made recommendations on them and then put them in the warrant booklet as well. Okay, but we're welcome to have any discussion. The first article is an override request. That's to increase the Proposition 2.5 restriction that we have to increase the amount above and beyond that by an amount of $484,000, which would allow the town to essentially supplement its budget with lost revenue or additional expenses that we've incurred over the last year, will allow us to balance the budget. So what happened is, as everybody knows, the last year there was an order from the mandate from the Department of Education, a $701,000 increase to the town in terms of paying its portion of the assessment for the Spencer East Brookfield Regional School District. There was no time between the time that order came out and the time that it was we needed in order to set the tax rate and get tax bills out. There was no time in that period of time to ask for an additional levy increase or an override from the taxpayers. So the town, the Board of Selectmen, and then obviously through town meeting, we had a special town meeting December 5th. We balanced the budget, balanced that $701,000 with a portion of reserves and a portion of cuts. Okay, so as we move forward to this year, we still have that deficit, if you will, a structural deficit within our budget. In addition to that, we have an increase in assessment again from the Spencer East Brookfield Regional School District, and you can see that we're asking for an override for that in question 2. Okay, so the original amount for the override that we talked about last week was $584,000, and as part of that, the Board of Selectmen selected specific services and tied them to specific dollar amounts in terms of if the override didn't pass, these were the things that we would have to make adjustments or reductions in these departments by these dollar amounts. And they're tied to certain services, they're tied to certain programs, and they're tied to certain staff availability. So, however, once the Finance Committee submitted, or the members of the town that submitted a petition to ask the voters for a meals tax, local option tax approval, and we'll get into some specifics of that when I get to the question. There's a potential for $100,000 of additional revenue there. So there was some discussion, as some of you, if you were there last night, saw on the Board of Selectmen. I know one member wanted to lower the number without that amount, and then the other board members felt that if we were going to do this and use that money as a potential revenue source, we should use that to lower the amount of the override. So that's what we did. I think you all saw the joint town meeting, or the joint meeting we had when we went over the specific programs, the specific departments, and I can answer any questions that you have on that. But there's an override request for the town to basically fill in the deficit that we still have from last year that's going to carry into next year, and the amount is $484,000. I'm going to show you the budget articles, and I can do a little more description there as I go through the warrant. But does anyone have any question on the town's override request? Yeah.
Okay, so what if the meals tax doesn't pass? Then you have to cut an additional $100,000.
Yep. So
think about hedging your bets at all by just cutting it by $50,000?
no, well, the Board of Selectmen felt that, based on the analysis in terms of what the estimated receipts would be, and estimating $100,000 approximately, it's been anywhere between 95 and 112,
Right,
I
that's
think.
not what I mean.
So, no, I know. So the Board of Selectmen felt that if we were going to be, Board of Selectmen felt if they were going to be asking, or the town leaders are going to be asking the voters for additional tax, if you will, they felt the best way to handle that would be to reduce the override amount. Okay, it's doing everything they can to make that request as low as possible, and here's an additional source of revenue that was come in. The fact that it's on the petition article, there's a very likely outcome that it would pass. If not, then we're back to the 584, and we're back to the proposal that we had the week before in terms of what services. So once the $100,000 came in as an additional revenue source and the override number was lowered, that allowed us to make some changes in terms of what we were asking for. So one of the most prominent change that was made in this budget was with the proposal for the 584, there was closing town hall 2 days a week. So it would only be open 2 days a week. This $100,000 essentially reduced that reduction to 1 day a week. And that was basically the major change that you see here. So I think if the meals tax didn't pass on the town meeting floor, we would then have to make that cut on town meeting floor. And that would be the motion, the revised motion, or that would be the motion for the budget article. So if you look at the warrant, I'll go through that in a second. I have the meals tax first, then the main budget article, and then the override article. So if the meals tax failed, then we're looking at the next article, which is the $8.3 million town budget.
Yep.
We would reduce that to 8.2.
Okay.
Okay, because now you don't have the $100,000 in revenue, and it would be motioned such that it would now include the same things that, I should say, motion would include reducing things that were originally proposed in the override. So it does change things around a little bit. The Board of Selectmen didn't feel that it would be best for the voters if we kept the override at 584 and had the $100,000 of new revenue. If we have new revenue coming in and we're asking the voters to have submit some new revenue, we should be applying it to this number. And that's what they felt. So is there a risk if it doesn't pass? Yeah, absolutely. But there's not really another way to do it. Because if you go forward once you set if we set the ballot question at 584, that's set in stone. You can't change that. If town meeting adopts the meals tax, you still have the 584 on the ballot. You can't reduce that amount. It's going to be, the town will have authorization to use that 584 if it passes, and have $100,000 in additional revenue. And that's what they thought wasn't fair to the voters by asking them to do that, in terms of that outcome. This was a way to, again, be prudent to the taxpayers. We've done everything we can to keep, to not ask you for additional money. And we're going to ask you for additional money this year. We're making it as low as possible. And this is one way that we'll do it. We'll use that additional revenue to apply to the override amount. Okay.
So assuming the selectmen will be supporting this?
I think they're now in a position where they will. Well, I could tell you this. I think it'll be a split vote. If you were there last night, it's probably a 4-to-1 vote. So and then we'll see where it goes from there. So there'll be a recommendation. The moderator will read the article. There'll be there's a petition article, so someone will have to, that submitted the petition usually would stand up and say, this is why we submitted the petition, this is what
This
the
is a
article
petition.
does.
Chris, no, Chris.
There'd be a
But he's not
recommendation
gonna do
from, and then there'd be a recommendation from the finance committee, not necessarily a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen. So the Board of Selectmen didn't vote and take a position on it. I think what they would do is they would come up one at a time and speak as other residents would.
Right. So we'll make the motion. I'll make the motion. Right? We're the ones, not the Board of Selectmen, correct?
No, correct. So it's
Okay.
it's a petition article, okay?
Right.
So usually somebody has to submit a motion and a second and then the article.
Right.
So I would be glad to do that for you, is just draft the motion for you, submit it and I just need 2 names, who would like to make the motion, who would like to second it. I would give that to the moderator, so he has a copy of that for the record and for the town clerk. And then he would read the motion, saying who made it, who seconded it, and then you'd have discussion, and usually it's the person that makes the motion that would
Right,
come
and
up.
the people who make the motion and second it have to be there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's key. You need to get your book out on that one?
Sine qua non.
That is one that I know.
Yeah, that's certainly key. Yes, Nancy?
Yeah, the tax question, if that passes on the floor, it passes, period? It
Correct.
doesn't go, okay,
It's not on the ballot.
okay.
And it takes effect 30 days after you notify
Is that
the
right?
Department of Revenue.
Department of Revenue. So it could technically take effect beginning of June.
Yeah. Well, you would receive receipts the first quarter after.
Right, I know that.
So
but-
probably October 1st, I think, would be the first time you would
Yeah.
receive any revenue.
But-
And they would distribute it just like they do with state aid.
Yeah.
They distribute it quarterly.
But it's not a direct reduction of your taxes because the meals tax is not necessarily even people from Spencer. I
Well-
mean, these are just people who eat
It's still a help.
at the restaurant.
It's still a
Right.
help.
And then
No,
someone,
yeah,
someone asked me this same question today in terms of, so how does that impact the levy? It doesn't impact the levy at all. Okay, has nothing to do with property, real estate, personal
Right,
property. It
but
has
you-
nothing to do with the tax levy at all. It's completely separate. What it is it's an option tax that essentially works as a local receipt. Okay, so if you look on the budget here, these are all the things that are tied to the tax levy. We have last year's limit, the 2.5 increase, new growth, and then debt exclusion. So this, number doesn't change, and state aid doesn't change because it's not technically state aid. What does change, I guess, I could have put it under local estimated receipts, but, so it actually acts, what ends up happening is the restaurants are paying the 6.25. It comes in the 6.25 and then the money goes to the Department of Revenue, right? So now it's going to be collecting 7% and they're going to send it to the Department of Revenue at 7%. Then the Department of Revenue is then going to distribute 75 cents on on $100 back to the towns quarterly, but it'll come at the same time as our local aid, and that's why I put it under that column. But it's not, has nothing to do with the levy. The levy
Right.
won't change. All it's acting is an additional receipt or an additional piece of revenue.
yeah, I understand that. But what I meant to say is, the way you're interpreting it here
Yep.
is you're saying, well, it's reducing Spencer taxpayers' burden. Their burden
It is.
really is
It is.
$584,000. We wanted the extra $100,000 to go towards capital projects or,
Well, you can't.
know, I mean-
Okay, so this whole sheet is all revenues. So it's going to show up on the revenue side. It's a receipt that's coming in. Okay. So on the revenue side, we have $20,124,000 coming in this year from a combination of levy, local aid, receipts, and transfers. Okay. On the next page, you have your expenses, and you have $21,100,000. So what you've done is you have a $1 million and change deficit. $538 of that is going to the school, and you had a $584,000 deficit remaining that was going to be the override. By now having $100,000 additional revenue, you now close the gap from 584 to 484. Okay, in the operating in terms of balancing your operating budget. Okay,
Right.
the $100,000.
we're kind of like, we've been running, the whole town, as far as I can understand, has been running always, at the edge, and to say, this is the way we want to continue running, just at the edge and just not increasing taxes at all as much as we can, being in the lowest 1% or whatever, is it the best for the community?
Well, it's timing. I would say this, in terms of the timing of asking of the question, of would the town like to adopt a local meals tax? If this was 6 years ago, when the economy was doing great, and we decided to, and the voters wanted to adopt it, yes, we could have used that to say, add an officer, to say, buy a piece of equipment every year, do that. We're in a certain time frame right now where we're dealing with a major deficit and a major override, and we need voter support in order to maintain a balanced budget. So that's why the selectmen said, okay, let's apply it to the override. And I think, that there may have been different intentions, but it was brought out now, I believe, because of the financial situation that we're in, not because we wanted to buy an additional piece of equipment.
No, not necessarily. I mean, Chris just said in the course of the general conversation, why haven't we looked at this? And he's mentioned it before. We just happened to pick up on it this time. I mean, I don't think we intended it to be, I think if he had said it no matter what, we would have picked up on it.
Yep.
It just-
That's
It
fair.
just came up in the course of general
Yep.
conversation and discussion about being creative about other ways to either
Bring in
raise
revenue.
revenue
Right.
or, right,
Right.
because
Yeah.
we have a revenue.
That's
problem.
fair, but then when you're going to, now you're going and calling on the voters to reach into their pocket and pay additional money, and while they're going to the restaurants, and obviously other people from other towns are coming to pay restaurants.
Yeah,
So
You know,
that eases the burden right there.
it eases the burden. So
Yeah.
basically what you have now is you have people from other towns coming into your town and they're
Right.
balancing, helping
Right.
balance a portion of your budget, and paying a
And I
portion
think
of that
that's-
override.
And I think kind of what we were hoping is that that this would be a little extra, that it wouldn't be a one-to-one trade-off for the override. It would begin to give us a little bit of a toehold in gaining on
Getting some
the,
ground.
yeah, the problem.
But and I agree with all that, except we're in a situation where we're not trying to gain, we're trying to maintain.
I know, and I guess
Mhm.
philosophically, that's been part of the issue. When are we ever gonna get to the point where we can get past trying to maintain?
When was the last
And how
time you
are we
think
gonna do
that the
that?
town there was a certain vote or a certain initiative to do that?
What do you mean?
In terms of add an officer, add highway worker? You know,
Well,
that, it doesn't happen that often. The town
correct.
hasn't been in a position to do that, or the,
But you have to look at why has the town not been in a position to do it, and what can you do to begin to gain on it?
Next time you-
Okay. I know, we're
We
not,
got a separate night on that one.
all right,
So
moving
can I
right.
just quickly
Yeah, go ahead.
restate? So basically, all these items in here really add up to 584,000.
Negative. They add up to 484.
Oh. So why did you say they applied to 100,000?
Because this number was 584, and in these line items, there was additional money in here
Subtracted, yeah.
that's not in there anymore.
In the one we got last
The
week?
one last week, when we went to the, when we
Yeah,
had-
okay.
At 584.
it was 584, and there was additional $100,000 in here, and it essentially was in, where's fire department? Fire department was actually 52 instead of 36.
Okay, so you took that estimated 100,000 in meals receipts, and then you reduced that budget?
Correct.
So why
And
did
applied it
they-
to specific line items.
Right, so why did they go after question number 1 as opposed to question number 2 with that money?
Why did they,
Question number 2 for school.
Like, in other words, they
Question
decided
number
to take
two
the
is-
100,000 in receipts and reduce the town budget so it looks more
Because wouldn't
palatable.
the school board have to
But
be
why
in
didn't
on
they
that one
reduce
then?
the school budget?
Right, because the school,
Because the school budget isn't the budget, Can't it's a touch the bill. school budget.
right.
well, I think what Chris is saying, why did you change the 584 to 484 instead of changing the 538 to 438?
Right.
Right, but that's a whole different ballgame, isn't it?
Well, I think what the Board of Selectmen is saying is, last year, I think what they're saying is, we didn't ask for override for any of your $701,000 last year. We'll eat that, or we're not gonna eat that, we're gonna try and absorb that, and obviously,
Choke on
and then they've asked for 538 in addition to that. So in the last 6 months, you now are dealing with $1.2 million, and where the town is looking for help is to balance our portion, which is the 701,000, and now we, basically through making some cuts and doing other things and having a little bit more revenue, now it's only 484.
Well, I mean, I understand what you're...
At the end of the day, go ahead.
I mean,
I
to
understand your
me,
point.
it's somewhat of an illogical approach because it's really not representing the true cost to the town.
What do you mean?
If you just take receipts and then reduce that,
But
you
you-
could, it doesn't, you're really not looking accurately at the expense.
So if you lower this 538 to 438, that means you have to bring this 484 back up to 584.
Well, the money goes towards the town, whether it goes to the town or the school.
No, the
What I'm
money's gonna,
pointing out
no,
is-
it's not, because what's gonna happen is, if you don't fund these things, they go away,
Okay.
right? So I think that's what
Lose a lot.
I think that's what the selectmen are saying,
Well,
it's that when this budget here doesn't get balanced, it doesn't come out of the school's budget. It comes out of town services, because that's what's left over. They will begin, if they don't get the override, they'll begin to spend the 112 budget at that 538.
Okay.
They have that right,
We
as of
redid
July
last
1st.
Don't have to change it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have that luxury. What we have is if we don't get our override, we have to make the reductions before we start on July 1st.
And that's the law that governs regional school districts. It's not just
Right,
this school district being recalcitrant. That's the law about how
right,
school districts
correct.
get
But
funded.
I still, I mean, you said, like, for instance, the fire department was 52,000.
Yep.
So suddenly now it's 36, but it really is 52,000.
No, because we took 100,000 off the 584. What it allowed me to do is that 100,000 let me apply 16 to the fire department. So what I did now is what I did was, now the fire department's part-time assistant, the fire chief's part-time assistant is no longer in this, she's in the main budget. Her position is in the main budget. It's not being proposed for elimination if the override fails. Same thing with town hall. These numbers were higher. This, treasurer collector was 37 instead of 17. Town clerk was 37 instead of 29. Town accountant was 27 instead of 10. So what it did was allow me to fulfill those items, and now instead of closing town hall 2 days a week, if this fails, you only close it 1 day a week. So these numbers in total, reduced by 100,000.
I mean, I get that part. I just, it seems to me that we're counting a chicken that hasn't hatched yet, right? I mean, the town hasn't even approved that meals tax. So, but yet we've already reduced the budget by that amount of money. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, but what he says is, if it doesn't pass, then the 484 goes back to 584, and people
Right.
lose their,
Correct.
lose their services.
I think the method to the madness is, again, when you're asking for an override, you're asking people to pay additional taxes, what you're trying to do is get that number to a point that is as low as possible. And I think that's what they're doing here, is they're saying, okay, we now, there's a petition article to propose a certain set of additional revenue. Would it be fair to the taxpayers to keep this at 584 and then get $100,000 in revenue that we can just do whatever we want with come July 1st?
I think it would be fair.
I do too.
Well, and the
Yeah,
other
well,
thing, but Adam, also remember that you're holding off on capital, right?
I'm holding off on $2 million worth of capital.
Exactly.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not $100,000 extra.
I guess what I'm trying to say is the Board of Selectmen, without speaking for them, we're trying to increase the probability of a passing of an override. The higher the number, would you agree that the lower the probability? Whether it's 1% or 100 or 50%, would you agree that the higher the number? If I'm asking people for 400,000 or 500,000, is there a certain percentage of people that,
I'm not.
whether it's 1% or 7% or 10%, I think that's where the paradigm is. We're
Yeah,
we're
I'm
we're
not
doing whatever we
sure that I agree
can
with that.
to put this forward so it's people are comfortable voting for it, and that we've done everything we can. We've made all the cuts we can make. We've changed health insurance. We've asked people to pay more co-pays. We've reduced positions. We've cut positions, eliminated positions. Now we're at a point where we're making this number as low as possible. We didn't ask for any money when state aid got cut 5 years ago. The problem is, Chris, if we ask for if we ask for the money that we need for capital, and now you're up to $1 million or $1.5 million, what's the likelihood of that passing? It's not going to pass.
No,
So, I mean,
and it just would give us a little bit of a leg up on the capital that you're holding off on to, and rightly, I think you're right to
Yeah.
do that, but
Yep.
I guess we're on the same.
Well, I would say is that I don't get a vote, and you can ask the Board of Selectmen when you get to the town meeting.
Yes,
You know,
I think you gotta ask the question, how deep is the well? You wanna
I
ask
think
for
that
you wanna ask for the override for the town for the 484, you wanna ask for the school, which we have to for the 538, and the school wants another 630, is it?
last
For the
week
computers and stuff
we
like
had
that.
someone step up at the meeting, and the first statement that person made was, "I am against an override." That was the first thing that person said. And I want to get specific, we all were sitting there. Then the second thing that was said was, "But I am interested in why it is that you're asking for an override." So to me, what I saw as I read between the lines is that most people are just categorically against it. I am for it, Adam, and I'm for all.
But that's you can't make a generalization off one person's statement. I think
I've
that's.
had many, okay, well, the few conversations that I've had, most people just nod their heads no, and for instance, I think that one of the selectmen that voted against the meals tax is basically against any type of taxation.
Well, let's
And they're
back up to your
curious.
point. Back up to your point.
Right.
Back up to your point of.
And that's really, it's more of a principle than the theory of gaining the money. It was just a category.
But you know what the alternative is to not asking for an override, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
So then where are we then?
so because one person says don't ask for an override, the only other option is eliminating all these things.
No. Perhaps I'm being misunderstood. I believe in that we all have a civic responsibility to support our town for the sake of all of us.
Sure.
And that everybody benefits from a good infrastructure. And I've said this many times, and I think you guys are doing a terrific job, all the select board. And I support you guys 100%. I think that sometimes when we phrase things like we're asking people, like we're asking them for a favor, wouldn't be the way that I would look at it. I think that we all take part in the betterment of this town, as John had said.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not asking anybody for a favor, we're asking everyone to take part in our responsibility to support the town that supports all of us.
I think
And
when you get down to the legalese, we're asking for
Yeah.
authorization to increase the levy. That's
Right.
what we're doing.
Yeah.
So is it a favor? Is it a necessity? Is it essential to maintaining town services or school services and having a good quality of life in this town? Yeah, all those things, Chris, absolutely. And you're gonna get a different response or a different presentation from everybody that talks about it. But, you know, we know that if we don't do it, you know,
The one thing
there's
that
only
we
one
need
way,
to
one
do-
other thing to do, and that's to get rid of
We
the
need to
stuff.
talk about that in every way that we can, and every time that we can.
That's right.
To regardless of what everyone's thinking and everyone wants to, you cannot operate a town when the townspeople don't back up the town. We don't have the money, you know, we're not the ones that are putting the money so that everybody can have a nice fine ride. The ride comes from the people in town. They have to submit and help to make the town run properly. If they don't pass these questions, they're gonna suffer the consequences of losing things in town. And then they're gonna be the first ones that are screaming and yelling and saying, well, how come the town ain't doing this? And how, well, you know, you don't wanna help with the money to support the town. What do you want from us?
You
It's
know-
gotta be, they gotta know how important they are to the town of Spencer. Not just to live here, but to work at making things right in town. Everybody's responsible for that. I don't care what it is you're doing, owning houses, owning property, owning businesses, whatever. You are responsible to keep the town running the way it's supposed to. It's your money, your tax money that makes the town survive. Everything that's been out there has risen. I mean, every price. You can't go to the market and not see prices going sky high. Well, that affects the town. And the town needs money, because if we want to have this business and we want to run a town that's going to be successful, everybody has to take part in that. We can't look at it like, no, we're not burning the override. That's it. Well, if you don't,
Well, John, that's why this
Yeah.
article was drafted such, sometimes you've seen, you know, some towns will write it very general and say $484,000 for general government purposes. And we didn't do that. We wanted people to know that we have to have a plan in place if the money is not made available to us. And we had to go through a series of 6 months of process of bringing department heads and going through services and figuring out what those line items would be. And now we presented those line items. I know that the Board of Selectmen is planning to have a public hearing or public informational meeting on April 23rd at their workshop, kind of like we did last summer when with the school, try to explain to people what Proposition 2.5 is, what it does, what's the impact on your tax rate, why it's being asked, and what happens if it doesn't go through. So this is step 17 in a 25-step process, is getting this on the ballot and notifying the town clerk. We had to go through the process of actually picking which things would be on here. And then we had to make an adjustment, or the Board of Selectmen had to make an adjustment, or felt they needed to make an adjustment last week based on the addition of the petition article. So.
One of the objections last year that I heard at the meeting, people would stand up and say we can't really ask people for an override because they're on, you know, they're elderly, they're on fixed incomes, they simply can't pay this extra tax. But does the town still have the program in the budget that says we have so much, so many positions or dollars set aside to help people reduce their tax?
We have $15,000 in the budget which we transfer from overlay surplus, so it's not tied to the levy and it's not one of the items that are in here. Originally we thought about it as a discretionary program. It's a discretionary program, but it doesn't come from tax levy, doesn't come from local receipts, doesn't come from state aid. The way we fund that is from overlay surplus. Overlay surplus, coming off of the warrant, we carry $110,000 in abatements, okay? So that if anyone applies for the abatement, we can apply that money towards this $12,619,000. So if Joe Smith comes and he gets a reduction on his taxes by $10,000, technically this $12,619 would come with $12,609. So the way we balance it is by taking money out of this money or reserve that's set aside to ensure that the revenue that we have is still there, okay? Any money that's left over in that $110,000 at the end of the year goes into an account called overlay surplus that the Board of Assessors are in control of. We take $15,000 out of there and apply it to the budget to allow for up to 15 people of low to moderate income seniors work $1,000 off of their taxes. Okay, so that program's still in there.
So that's still in the
Correct.
program.
And there's also, some abatements, elderly can apply for abatements as well, right?
Which is completely different.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely, but it's another mechanism when people talk about elderly on fixed incomes. It's also another process besides the working. They can apply based on age and income.
Yeah, I don't know the exact
Yeah,
specifics
I don't know
of
either,
that
but I know
program.
that
I know
there
there's,
Is that a state program or a town
it
program?
comes from state law, but there's, veterans benefit, the exemption, there's exemption for the blind, and there's exemption for elderly.
I know
So
my
don't know the
my mother-in-law used
specifics
used
about
to
it.
get it. She applied, she filled out whatever paperwork was required and she got
Did
it.
we have
Not in
15
this town.
people take advantage of that?
We've had, well, we cut it this year,
Yeah.
so we only ended up with 5,000, and we used all 5,000, but we cut it in December. And we
Yeah.
used the money from overlay to stay in the budget, and we used that as part of the, kept it in the budget, so when we reduced that to balance the
Did
budget.
you have only 5 applicants?
No,
or
we get,
did you-
we have applicants, we have, we usually get, 13, 15 applicants, and then, we try to put them, so there's sometimes, if you apply in May, there may not be any work available, and there's not enough time for you to work off that money, so, in years past, have we only spent 13,147 of the 15? Yeah, that's happened.
But how?
But yes, we do have a regular, we've had people that go from every year,
Yeah.
they come back and apply.
I guess what I'm getting at, is there a demand for more than 15?
No, I think it's adequate.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't have like a waiting list of
The
like.
people, the department heads seem to be happy with the people.
Yeah.
I think what's happened sometimes too is you can work up to $1,000 off, but we've had people where they've only done $750 based on that they only want to do certain types of work, right? So if we don't have all that kind of work, they can't work up to the 1,000, so they're only going to get a $750 benefit. That makes room for a 16th person. If everything being equal, gets $250 work up that. So we make adjustments through the year on that. But we have had people that, once you get to the cap, and it's October 1st, even though there's 9 months left in the fiscal year, you made your cap at $1,000. That's all we can do for you, because that's the way the program's
But
structured.
it helps.
That helps.
All right, so,
All right, so that was the discussion on question 1.
right. Well, I think I suspect,
45 minutes.
Hope you get another tape.
I suspect that we covered several in there, and that we'll, yeah.
Okay, speed it up.
Listen fast, everybody. Okay, question 2.
Question 2, the 538,482 is the increase over from FY15 to FY14. Okay? Any question on that?
And they didn't reduce that at all when they voted to change the health insurance for the retired?
They did not have a number. They had no idea,
They didn't present a number.
none. Well, I'm sorry, they didn't present a number. So, yeah, no.
Difference.
Difference.
I got a question. On the March 11th minutes of the Finance Committee, under the East Brookfield Spencer Regional School Committee, FinCom members voiced frustration with attempting to get sufficient reliable information. They asked the superintendent for clear detail and explanation of how he arrived at the budget numbers. Did we get anything?
No.
That request was from the committee to the superintendent, not from this committee.
From the.
Is it from this
Board of-
committee?
It said FinCom members,
What meeting was that one?
March 11th.
Yeah, but is that a selectmen's meeting, a school committee meeting, or a finance committee meeting?
It was a
Was it the
Was
joint
that the
meeting?
joint meeting?
It was a joint
Okay,
meeting.
so that was a joint meeting of the board of selectmen and the finance committee when the superintendent was there to make a presentation?
Yeah.
Well, this was a-
That wasn't us, because his presentation was on March
I take it
25th.
Yeah,
back.
that's
That-
right, yeah.
March
That's
24th.
That might be,
That wasn't us.
this was a joint meeting with the school committee
Maybe East Brookfield.
and the
Board of Selectmen.
FinCom, right?
No.
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 Board
Maybe
of
that was
Select-
just, was this a meeting where they
No.
were the guests?
The only time
No.
the only time they came to the town hall was
April
March
was
24th. It was a
24th.
Monday night, it was a selectmen's meeting, the finance committee attended that meeting.
Right.
That's it.
You two attended it. Okay, I see it here
All
up
all
on
of
top.
us.
And it said FinCom members voiced frustration and asked for that information, but I don't know who asked for the information.
Well, and they, actually,
The
the,
11th would be a Tuesday
I-
night. Is
I
that,
Yeah.
assumed that the FinCom members did, but it
maybe
Yeah,
that was,
we were-
maybe it was
doesn't
your
clearly
meeting?
state that.
We didn't have.
We didn't meet on March 11th?
No, we didn't-
No, we had finance committee on March 11th.
You had a finance
But we did
committee
have
meeting, but-
superintendent and.
Mary, I believe it's when you took down all our questions that we wanted answered,
Yeah.
like, are there any unfunded positions?
Oh,
Where,
oh,
and we
could be.
did get, I mean,
Yep,
in a
yeah, we did,
roundabout way, we got
yeah, some of
those
those.
answered.
But at the at the March 24th meeting. the
That's
same-
when he presented the budget.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the same question.
That was
So I believe our March 11th meeting here is when you just wrote down a few of our
Yeah.
questions that we wanted answered
Yeah.
for that March 25th
Yeah.
meeting. So
Yeah,
that's what
that
that
was,
meant.
So, the retirees were removed from the GIC, is that what it's
Right.
called?
There's a vote to start the
Right,
process.
so they removed them, so then what? Then they're gonna have to get private insurance?
No.
No.
The only thing, what it does is when you come out of the GIC,
Mhm.
there's a specific plan that's tied to the GIC. When you come out of the GIC, now you are, they're still gonna get insurance, but it's not through that program. It could be through Tufts, Harvard, Brown, somewhere else. So there's still gonna be a school district-sponsored plan.
Right.
When you come out of the GIC, the key is there, when you're in the GIC, the contribution rate is defined. When you
Okay.
come out of the GIC, then the district can set whatever rate it wants for the
Right.
contribution percentage, so that's why they took them out. And then they
So-
took a vote, did they take a vote to set the percentage? I'm sorry, I wasn't at the meeting.
nope.
Oh, they just voted to take them out.
They voted to take them out,
Did they vote like 75-25, 85-10, 15, nothing like that?
no
Okay.
information.
No.
They said,
Okay.
well,
So again,
we're
the
gonna
first step
put
is
out
just,
some pro-
the
we're
first step
gonna
is
put
having
out
that
some
hearing, having
proposals and
the
when
non-binding
everybody
vote, and then
decides-
pulling them out.
So
It was just like Obamacare.
My question is, so if they in fact remove them out of the GIC and they're gonna put them into private carriers, how could anyone estimate what the cost is gonna be?
Easy.
Easy?
Yeah, they had
They had a chart of how many people were in each insurance plan.
Yeah.
And then they had the new plan and what it would cost that person. So they could have easily just assumed
plan.
everyone.
You gotta
Comparable
did
plan.
that.
Could have done
The
a
cost of the plan
scenario.
isn't gonna be a huge difference.
You could have done
Yeah,
a
I mean, because-
scenario that, what you don't know is what the plan buys either. They couldn't tell you.
Define co-pays and all that.
Right, they couldn't,
Right,
they
so
could
they would
tell
have
you.
But the
multiple
premiums-
choices.
They would be working with their broker on comparable plans that comparable communities use in terms of the structure for the
Mhm.
retiree plan. Again, it's a supplemental plan.
Right.
Okay, so once you're over 65, you're going to
Medicare.
Medicare, and then you're gonna get, and then this is a supplemental to that. So the structure is pretty, our broker does it for us. He goes out and puts together an RFP, and he gets, quotes from 5 different carriers. So we know what the costs are gonna be approximately. They're not like, one's $10,000 a plan, one's $1,000 a plan. There's, they're all within the same range, gives a 1 to 4% range. So they at least have an idea. So even if they offered the same exact plan that was in the GIC, and that's one way to do a cost method, you just pull that plan out, have that same exact structure, have a carrier
But they had
match that
They
quote,
had that.
and then all you do is you just change the percentage from 90-10 to whatever percentage you want them to go to, say it's 75-25, and you just take that 15% and you multiply by each plan, you know what the savings are.
Actually, they didn't, what they had was.
We do that.
What
But
they
they could
said,
just mandate that to the retirees?
Yes.
And we can
Yeah.
mandate to the
Right.
the
they
state-
didn't have, they had different, they had, named this plan and named that plan. This is GIC, this is the cost, and this is the other parallel plan, and that's the cost for that, the difference in the cost. But they couldn't tell you, or they wouldn't, if the coverage was the same. Somebody asked about like prescriptions, are my prescriptions gonna be covered? Well, a lot of them could get covered, but, if they don't, you can always appeal. They said, well, what about co-pays and things like, well, we don't really know.
Okay.
And then, what exactly is the savings to the town? Because it's essential, I mean, it's $1 million,
to the town or to the district?
to the district, I mean,
So-
it's $1 million out of 24 million, it's huge,
But-
and there needs to,
But I
something
think
needs to be
Chris's
done.
question is, in terms
What?
of state law says that the district or towns have to offer a supplemental plan to retirees. Under state law, the percentage, the contribution rate could be 100%.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Okay.
And in terms of active
You-
positions, state law says we offer that to our employees, but the minimum we can require them to, or the minimum we can go down is 50%, 50/50.
Okay.
So it could be 0-100. Obviously, I don't think they're planning on doing that, but I think they're trying to get to a point where it's comparable to what other districts are offering their retirees in terms of a comparable contribution rate.
Which is
When you're
all
outside
over
of the
place,
GIC.
too.
So what we did for the town, 10 years ago, we were at 85-15 for our retirees.
Okay.
The Board of Selectmen voted a policy, didn't have to go to town meeting. didn't have to go to the ballot. It was, because they're outside the GIC, they voted a policy that they would increase the percentage rate 1% per year for 25, 25 to get to 60/40. So they're 85 to 15.
Okay.
So 1% per year. So now, after 10 years, they've gone from 85/15 to 75/25 with only a 1% shift every year. So it's not, it's not a 25% shift in 1 year.
Okay.
Which
But
is
that's
amazing.
not necessarily the case for the retirees.
That is the that
Yeah,
is the case
that's
for retirees. That's what we do for our
the town
retirees.
retirees. That's
Oh,
what they
maybe for
do.
the town, what I'm
Yeah.
saying was, with what the school
Oh,
is
district
doing
is
now,
different.
Yeah.
what the district is doing now is where the town came up with the idea of doing 1% a year to eventually get to that point. With what they're gonna do with the retirees is they're gonna force them to go immediately to
Some number.
where they might have been paying 10 or 15%,
Right.
going to
Right.
25 or more
Right.
in one shot.
Correct.
That's a big difference between doing
Absolutely.
1% and a
Absolutely.
year.
Absolutely.
And so, and again, with no explanation of,
Right.
of, it was, if,
But
If
it's,
this-
the whole thing seems kind of odd to me, is that here in this budget, we're trying to allocate money into the Council of Aging, which I also support.
yeah,
But then on the other hand, we're taking money away from retirees. It's
Well,
like
the-
we're attacking them on one hand and supporting them on another. It's like, again,
Well,
from
these are
a...
the two different worlds.
Well,
from a moral
I say, we're
standpoint,
taking-
I have a little trouble- I have
We're
an
taking
issue with-
money from your pocket and paying it to the retirees now. Now we're saying to the retirees, you gotta start paying a little more. Because, because there's nothing,
Yeah, either way,
yeah, well,
whether they're here or there, raising the
you're
taxes,
paying
or
and you
taking
get no
away their
benefit out of it,
benefits.
is what
I
I'm
mean,
saying.
again, it boils down to...
you're paying and you get no benefit out of it, is what I'm saying.
Well, of course I do,
Do
because
you?
those very people were supporting me when I was a child in school.
And they were, and
Right?
and
So
when they
it's
were
kind of
working, they
full
were getting
circle. They
100%.
supported me when I was growing up, and now I'm supporting them as they're aging.
And when they were working, they were getting 100% health insurance covered.
because the only time, so when they did it for the town too,
Yeah,
Can't
Yeah.
do that.
but times have
because
changed, it's just
99%,
too expensive
because it
now.
was, well,
Way.
the year that
Yeah,
they did
that's
it, and
the
I
key.
was at that town meeting,
Yeah,
when they
the only concern
voted
is
to go
that,
99%
Monday
health
20,
insurance for the town, because it
the
was,
last business
health
meeting
insurance
before
was
the first
cheap,
is a Monday.
and it was cheaper to pay
First
health
September,
insurance than to
Thursday.
give the
By the
employees
time it gets on
raises.
TV, it's on
So,
Monday.
Times change, so you can't,
You'll
like,
make this
blame the
it's an
employees on
information
any
public
side of the fence for decisions
That's
that were
not for me
made to
you. This
benefit
is
the
for
town
me.
at the time the
This is-
decisions
this is
were
the
made
board's
either,
meeting,
you know.
informational.
So,
Yeah, but I can't.
Well, we can
All right.
chew this as long as we
Yes,
want
we
the
can.
question isn't gonna
It's
change.
not gonna
so-
change. And, right, and it's, they
I
are
only
not,
have-
they gave no
the only other option
indication
I have
that
is
any money
28.
would come off here because of savings from retirees' health insurance.
It's 20th?
You're right, they didn't change that.
But my only
all.
concern is that it-
But you want to do it
Um,
after that, right?
Okay, the
That's
next
what that
one,
would
the
be.
last,
it would be 3
the
days
last
before.
ballot question is,
We'll talk about that.
to purchase computer equipment, it's a debt exclusion to purchase computer equipment for the school. Now, last night you were talking about tying it to a debt exclusion, is that, I'm sorry, did I say no, this is to,
All right, let me
go up.
slow down on this one.
I got it.
And I think there was some confusion. There was an article in the paper about East Brookfield and their concerns. The regional school district voted to borrow money, okay? The town of Spencer and the towns of East Brookfield have now the opportunity through town meeting articles to let them move forward or stop them from that borrowing, okay? That's the question on the warrant, which I'll show you. There's gonna be a question that says, will the town approve of the $632,000 that the Spencer East Brookfield Regional School District would like to borrow for a certain purpose, okay? So there's an article on the warrant that either lets them go forward, or if either the town of Spencer or the town of East Brookfield votes this article down, they cannot do the borrowing, okay? If you remember with Bay Path, that happened to them, where they had 10 towns looking to do, they were looking to do an expansion. If any of those 10 towns, it was dead in the water. We went forward with the debt exclusion process, and it passed. And then they had to come back with a joint town meeting through the process of an election, a joint cross-town election. And then when that passed, then it approved them, allowed them to move forward to borrow the money. Debt exclusion is completely something different. That's our decision, Board of Selectmen's decision, in terms of how to actually pay for that borrowing, okay? So, Article 20 allows them to either move forward with the borrowing or not. The debt exclusion, what this is saying, if that article is approved and the district moves forward, the town of Spencer would like to ask its voters to allow them to increase the levy to pay for that through a debt exclusion process, just like we did with the fire truck, just like we did with town hall, just like we did with the Abbey. Once that borrowing has been paid off, it goes away from the levy. That's what they're asking. If the article passes and allows them to move forward with the borrowing, and this doesn't pass, then we're cutting another dollar amount out of our budget come the fall, based on whatever borrowing structure they do, whether it's 5-year, 7-year, 10-year, whether it's $100,000 payment, $150,000, $200,000, we're going to have to deduct that number if they move forward with the borrowing. If they haven't presented a borrowing structure, so I don't know what that is yet, which may be an issue at town meeting.
And so that's why you don't
But
need.
this is why, so if East Brookfield does not have to have a debt exclusion, if they say, district, go ahead and borrow the money, it's the 632, and our portion is 132,000 of that, and that's gonna be spread out over 5 years, and plus interest, and we're gonna end up paying $35,000 a year, we're gonna absorb that within our budget, they can go ahead and do that. We know that $500,000, which is approximately 81%, plus interest over, say, 5-year period is 125,000. We're in the whole 1.2 million. Another 125, just so that's why the request by the Spencer Board of Selectmen for additional money would be to increase the levy to pay for whatever payment the district moves forward with if they decide to borrow the money. So there's two different things going on. One authorizes them to spend the money. The second, if the authorization passes, allows the Board of Selectmen to increase the levy to pay for that. Okay? But the town of East Brookfield doesn't have to do that. So I think the confusion was that the Spencer East Brookfield Regional School District voted to do the borrowing and then voted to do a debt exclusion. The only ones that can put a debt exclusion question to the voters is the Board of Selectmen. So I think that's what the comments from East Brookfield was in the paper this morning, is that, it's not up to them to decide if we ask for a debt exclusion or not, it's up to us. So they may and they may not. Board of Selectmen Spencer chose to ask for a debt exclusion in case that borrowing is approved.
And that was the same thing with Bay Path.
Same exact thing.
Anybody,
So that's what happened
Yeah.
with Bay Path. They had a $75 million project. So there are towns that have to pay for their portion of the borrowing because it passed at that joint crosstown meeting, which essentially acted as, it was a
Yeah.
district-wide election, but actually acted as a joint town meeting crosstown, which authorized the borrowing. But then there are certain towns that went after that, once they're responsible for paying for the bill, then went to ask for debt exclusion, didn't get it. They have to pay that bill. So if they don't get additional revenue, they have to cut their budget to pay for it. Or they have to absorb it within their following year's budget and with new growth or whatever else.
Mule tax.
With this question, has the superintendent made a district improvement plan that includes like a technology improvement plan? Because Bay Path has a website. On their website, you can click the link and you can go to their, they call it a district technology improvement plan.
Mm-hmm.
And on their plan, they've outlined, right now we have 2 broadband lines, and we'd like to go to fiber optics when they're available. That will cost so much. Our servers are upgraded every 3 years, and they have all these things. We use these and those software products, and it's laid out. You understand what the plan is going forward for technology there.
That was an issue for the Board of Selectmen last night, in that they were disappointed in the lack of information in terms of, one, was there an evaluation on the system?
Right.
Tell us what that is, show us, document what the shortfall is or the inadequacy or what's going on. Document that, provide us that information, tie it to a plan of how you're moving forward, and then provide us with information in terms of quotations, off the state bid list, materials, labor, how many, servers, what type of server, how much capacity, how does that match your plan? They were concerned that there wasn't enough information, and that they were concerned, that's, obviously one of the reasons why the debt exclusion was put on, but they're hopeful that there's more information provided at the town meeting.
Well, I would say if they don't have a plan, then
I think
how can you support something? They just want money. A new computer, you can talk to, I think one of the principals said, we have 5 computers that actually work, but it doesn't mean they're used because our internet is so slow and so you know, it gets clogged so quickly, we can't even use 5 of them at a time.
I think the other concern for the board last night was that the superintendent at that meeting on March 24th mentioned that this was one phase out of 3 phases. It'd be nice to know what the cost of the other 2 phases is, what the plan for the borrowing is for
Right.
that, what the payment's gonna be, and how does that fit with the plan, and, you know, are we talking, and, you know, we heard numbers of $2 million. Well, that's, you know.
But the thing is, and you're right, the technology in that school is so far behind. They're using school books that are probably 40 years old. The computers are trash, the buildings are trash. We've got to do what we can to support new technology in that school, and I don't care what it's gonna cost.
But see, that's
my
But
own
you need a
personal opinion.
plan.
Correct.
You have to know what, I mean, if they just go and buy new computers and they don't have the bandwidth to support them,
But this
They're
fellow's been here for
useless.
9 months, and for 9 months has been trying to crawl out from under a rock. I think we gotta give him a chance.
The biggest
And-
problem with this whole thing, quite frankly, is because they choose to ignore it for all these years.
That's
The
right.
The problem they have now isn't that they just would like to improve their computer systems for the sake of
It's
it.
never been done.
No, it's because Microsoft is ending XP
Yeah.
platform,
Yeah.
starting as of the 15th.
That's right.
Which means that they have to take all of their computers off the internet. They can't have email, they can't have anything, because of the dangers that they'll no longer have patches available
Power school.
Right.
to keep people from
Parents
hacking
keep in
into
touch.
it. So unfortunately, they kicked the can down the road for years in not upgrading this stuff. Now, Microsoft has forced them to a situation where now they've got hundreds of computers at the school that they're not going to be able to use
Yep.
because
And I'll
of
tell you
this
what,
situation.
having worked in the district, we had plans. We had a district-wide technology plan committee. We had plans. We had, I mean, even just at Knox Trail, the 3 of us who were involved most heavily in computers, I can actually produce the ones that we wrote. We brought to the school committee, and they were denied, and they were denied, and they were denied. Just denied. That's it. Weren't funded, weren't funded, weren't funded. There was a district-wide technology committee as well, trying to make it exactly, I mean, exactly. We met once a month. We looked at all the different aspects. No funding, no funding, no funding, no funding.
Tom, I think the Board of Selectmen's concern last night wasn't that they don't believe the technology is needed. It's that when you're asking for money, and then we're asking for a debt exclusion on top of that, we need as much information as possible to ensure when you're dealing with $1.2 million in deficit, government needs to be held accountable
Right.
to what they're asking for. And that's what we've tried to do over the last 6 months, and go through this process and show how every single penny is spent, and then to make some decisions in terms of how we continue to spend that money moving forward. And if we want to maintain services, then we ask for this dollar amount. It seems that the concern from the Board of Selectmen is not only on the override for the 538, but the debt exclusion. There's not enough information for people to make a decision, which is going to hurt their chances of getting the technology that they need. And that's the concern. Is that not that they don't need it, not the outdated
Right.
stuff, but you're not doing yourself any service here and trying to get support of the people for that expenditure if you don't tell them exactly. People care about every dollar that goes. Where's it going? I want to know, how many computers you're buying, how much capacity does it have, where is this going to take us, when's the next time you're going to ask us for money? All those questions need to be answered, and the information I think hasn't been provided yet. There's a concern of the Board of Selectmen that they're not going to get the technology they need. April 15th's here. You're not giving the information. Voters aren't going to vote for it. Now what? And now you're going to be another year behind. So I think that's, in terms of preparation, there was disappointment last night that there wasn't enough. And I think there's maybe a feeling on the other side that they have enough information. I think that's where there's a disconnect between them and the voters, and what we were trying to do with the voters, understanding the voters in terms of what their needs are and the expectations that they have from us. I think they'll find on town meeting where they stand in terms of if they left themselves short or not. But I think the concern of the
And
selectmen was they
some of
did.
the conversation
Thanks.
about different things that they were buying. The tech guys, when I worked in the district, bought parts. They reconstructed, rebuilt, jerry-rigged, did everything they could do to save as much money as they could to make computers useful, functional. They still had 586, when they opened Knox Trail, they opened with 586. That was a big, fat, important, state of the art. So that was 1993, 4, something like that. 2000, 5, 6, they got rid of the last one. So they had masters at making things work as inexpensively as possible, as effectively as possible. But now, everything just has fallen in like a house of cards.
Well, how much truth is it to that there's grant money out for this, for the technology?
A lot of the grant money you just don't know. A lot of the grant money has dried up, some of it dried up with the, when the economy kind of tanked. But the other thing about grant money is, the key with grants is supplement, not supplant. Grant makers don't want to pay for things that the entity should be paying for. They want to pay to help, to beef up, to make things better, to
Well,
improve
what I'm
things,
asking
not
is,
to
do they have
cover.
any? Because that's what I've been hearing from some, is that there is money supposedly, like they do have. And I don't know, that's what I'm trying to find out.
Yeah, and I don't know
Do
what
they?
they're,
And if
I
they
don't know what
do,
they're.
they should be applying it.
But well, they should be, and I mean, as far as I know, why wouldn't they, really? But this may be beyond
Yeah,
what
I
a
don't
grant,
know.
what a
Yeah.
grant will pay for.
Yeah.
I mean, if they
has
use
a
E-rate,
E-rate,
yeah, E-rate money,
E-rate
that
money.
that pays for the internet connection,
Right.
the infrastructure, not for the
phone.
machines.
Well, that doesn't help, yeah. that helps.
You know, yeah, but it's a
You just have to
different,
be careful that you don't have a lot of people throwing around town that there's gotta be grant money out there that can pay for this stuff, therefore we don't need
yeah.
to approve
Oh, yeah,
this.
and then that's certainly not what I'm getting at.
No, and I
yeah.
understand that, I'm just saying
Yeah.
that, you know,
I'm just saying
they'll
if
look
there's
for any
assistance,
excuse not
yeah.
to raise it,
Oh,
so,
sure.
you know, they'll just use the excuse, well, there's grant money they haven't even applied for that you can get to pay for that.
And you know,
There
And
was a
what I say
gentleman
to
that-
them is, show me the grant application,
Right,
you know.
but there was a gentleman that stood up, I think, at the selectmen meeting last week that, you know, is part of a group of, you know, local people from Flexcon and a number of other places.
Yeah.
That made a point that, you know, a lot of people seem to think that somehow there's gonna be one of these major companies that are gonna just automatically just dump money in somebody's lap for that.
Mm.
And they made it quite clear that that's not where the
No.
money's gonna come from.
And I mean, even, so when I was still at Knox Trail, because of, I don't know, listservs and stuff, where I found out about a company that was getting rid of a couple of old computers, I drove down to Newton to pick them up. One of the other teachers' sister works for a big insurance company in Boston, they were getting rid of 5 or 6. Now, this is, the company has used them for 5 or 6 years. She drove down to Boston to get 5 or 6 more. And that's been the kind of stuff that's been going on.
Adam,
Yes.
why would there not be a dollar amount put in that question?
Yep, because the state statute actually specifies the actual language of the question. So all I've done here is insert the town and the East Brookfield School District and the purpose, okay? So the dollar amount is not in here because the borrowing structure is up to the district. So they vote for the money, we authorize the expenditure, now it's up to them to figure out if those are approved, how to do the borrowing, how to structure it. Is it 5 years, is it 7 years, is it 10 years? Is it even principal? Is it even payment? So those questions are not answered at this point, but even if they were, they wouldn't go in here. But I know what we've done in the past is what we did when we did the ladder truck. I would work with our lender, and we would see what those dollar amounts would be, what the payments would be on an annual basis, if it was 5 years, 7 years, or 10 year, if it was even principal or even payment, based on what the current interest rates are going for. And then I take that payment, and then I would apply it to the tax rate to figure out what the impact would be on your average tax bill. We don't have any of that information. They haven't even discussed how long they would borrow for, and what the structure is. $632,000. So if you throw 5 years out and our portion's 80% plus interest,
Right, but I mean, where did that number come from?
that came from the superintendent.
Okay, so they did give you an idea of what
They gave us they voted a number to borrow. We then get a letter saying we voted to borrow.
Yeah.
So then, if we don't even put an article on the warrant, they could go move forward. So the only opportunity the towns have any say on that borrowing is at the town meeting in terms of if they vote no on it, then they can't move forward with the borrowing. And then as far as funding it, this obviously gives the town an option to pay for it a different way.
All right, any more discussion on the ballot questions? Can we move on to the
Wow.
warrant?
Article 1.
Article 1.
There you go.
Yeah.
2023.
Motion to approve Article 1 through 23, did someone say that?
Okay, fine.
Yeah, I can just
Uh,
write one name.
So Article 1 is to balance this year's budget, is typically the first article of the warrant. We have an existing fiscal year, 2014, that ends June 30th. We need to balance the budget before June 30th, with, make up any shortfalls, and one way to do that is to insert free cash. We have approximately $450,000 in free cash. 207 will be going here to backfill these budgets, if you will. The snow and ice is $200,000 of additional money that we spent than originally budgeted. Originally budgeted $175, so we spent $375,000 this year taking care of snow and plowing and sand and salt and et cetera, et cetera. That's the majority of that. Then we took on Maple Street School, so as part of that, I had to expand our insurance for coverage for that building. So this isn't the actual number, but this is about the shortfall. I did have, I carry a little bit of money in there because we do at times during the year have to actually make settlements, or we have a deductible and things like that. So I'm about $979 short, so this $1,000 will help me balance that budget. The $6,700 that's being requested from the Parks and Rec program would be for them to start the program in June, as they usually do. We have this happen the last few years. We've talked about this, how they get their new money in July 1, but the program they want to start in June, 2 weeks ahead of time. They need money to do that, hire lifeguards, supplies, whatever. The thought is that if the override failed, and which has the Parks and Rec programs on it, this money being transferred into the Parks and Rec program would just not be spent, and next year would roll over into free cash. Okay? Any questions on Article 1?
All right. Anyone care to make a motion?
Make a motion, we accept it as written.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. Unanimous, very good. Article 2.
Article 2 is an annual article that we use, and the term you sometimes hear at town meeting by the presenter is housekeeping. There's the portion of this article is for the town to receive in writing reports, and then we have a series of revolving funds, which allows either a certain portion of fees to be put into a certain fund for a particular use. That is the case with planning board. That is the case with Sugden block revenue. That is the case with the wiring inspector money that we raise. That also for Parks and Recreation have had a revolving fund, the Celebrations Committee. We've added a new one for the Council on Aging to have a program, and also for Stormwater. And then we have things related to grants such as Chapter 90, block grants and other grants. And then we have portions of fines, and then a portion of rollback taxes then being assigned to certain funds as well. They're not really revolving funds, but they're assigned to certain funds as well. Authorize the treasurer to borrow based on approvals of the town, and then the board of selectmen to enter into contracts. So that is an annual housekeeping article. The only thing that's new this year is creation of 2 new revolving funds, one for Council on Aging programs and another for our Stormwater program.
Right.
Questions on Article 2?
I make a motion to approve Article 2 as written.
Second.
Who's second?
Who's second?
Tom.
Oh, Tom, okay. And any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Article 3 is to set or fix salaries for positions that are elected officials for FY15. The only change is to the treasurer collector and the town clerk, which is a 1.3% adjustment, which is the same as you'll see in Article 4 for personnel bylaw non-union folks. The other documents for boards we usually adjust periodically. We don't go from 7.25 to now 7.32 and 26 cents because it's 1.3%. We usually will bump them up $25, $50 increments every couple of years. These items for certain folks were eliminated when we had those cuts in the fall and December. This restores those back in. Questions on Article 3?
All right. Any
second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unanimous.
Article 4 is to change the schedules, compensation schedules in the personnel bylaw. We have certain grades, and then we have certain positions. These all generally go up 1.3% as recommended by the Personnel Board. Covers everything from on-call firefighters to election workers to folks that work at the library, lifeguards, part-time staff, tree warden, veterans agent, etc. Any questions?
Which ones didn't go up by 1.3%?
They all went by 1.3%, but in order to make a dollar exactly even, like if you look, you know, there may have been, it may have been 1.29% or 1.31%.
That's 4 is said. All right, any questions, comments? No? Any motion?
Make a motion to accept
Okay.
Article 4.
Okay.
Second that?
All right.
When we say we accept it, that means we recommend it?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed?
Mary has abstained from that.
Oh. You have to abstain? Okay. All righty, hold on.
Uh-oh.
So, let's see, it's not unanimous.
It's
You
10
have that,
and 1
right?
abstention.
10 to
Yeah.
1. 10 to 01.
All right, Article 5.
Article 5 is the regional school district budget. Last year, this was broken out into 2 different articles, in which number 4 was taken out, because that was kind of the unknown. And then what we found is that during the course of the year, there could be an adjustment by the state on terms of the minimum local. So what we did was we just combined that all together. If there was a change in minimum local, that money, you know, it's the 5.725 million in item 1. If the minimum local went, instead of being increased 252,000, is only increased to 152,000, this number would technically be 5.625, and then the additional local would go up to 1.2. So what we did is we put it all into one article. However, the whole volume, the whole quantity is an increase of 538,000, which is the question number 2 on the ballot. So the funding of this requires an override to be passed to fulfill the request. 538,482 is the difference between FY14 and FY15.
So why doesn't that say that here?
In terms of, what do you mean, what does it say what? Doesn't it say what the difference is between the 2 years?
Right.
Because this is what's been voted on by, you know, these numbers is what's been voted and set by the district budget, or by the district committee. It's up for us to explain to the voters at town meeting that this is, or even the district to explain at the meeting, this is an increase over last year over 538,482.
So it'll be kind of all or nothing?
That's how we did it last year. Yep.
So
And that's the way it works. It's not, again, the school committee sets the budget, and then the town, and then there's notice, we can't, I guess technically, could you reduce this number on town meeting floor? Yeah, but it's not approved at that point if the school committee doesn't go back after the fact and vote on it, just like we had at the district-wide meeting. So yes, just like our budget, which is 8.3 million, if someone asked me what the percentage increase is over last year, I could tell them, but that's because I have this information here. I also have the school's information if I have it broken down right here. You can see the school's numbers here. Okay. So it's not necessarily specified in the article in terms of what the changes are. That usually comes up during discussion, I guess. It wouldn't, you know, follow me? Am I on the right page?
No, you're right.
I bet Bill's looking at me like, why wouldn't we explain to the voters that this is 538 in the article itself?
It's up to the moving party.
Yeah, this is the, again, they vote on the budget, they set the number, they set these 4 things, it comes to us. The only control we have over these 4 numbers, technically, is this contingent line in bold that says it's contingent upon an override for 538. And then So in discussion, if someone asks why this override is here, or for additional information, why is it structured this way, we would say because it's an additional $538,000 request that's on the override on the election ballot on May 13th, in the amount of 538. The numbers that you see here represent 538 increase over FY14. It's not usually specified in the budget. We don't put FY14 numbers and FY15 numbers up against each other in the article itself.
Right.
They're elsewhere, like I have a supplemental budget that I submit.
Yeah, last year you had two questions, though. One for the minimum
What we did
minimum
is
contribution,
we
and
took
then
this number
everything
out.
over the minimum contribution.
Right.
So I guess that's where I'm headed.
The reason we did that was because the Board of Selectmen took a vote, because the number was 3.3 million. What they said was, we'll absorb the minimum local. Everything else above that is going to be additional local, and that's going to be the amount of the override. This year, what they're saying is, we have that situation that you had from last year in which we have that additional local being carried forward. Now you're asking for another 538 on top of that. You got to ask for an override for the 538. Rather than, hey, we could ask you for an override for 1.2, but we'll accept our you know.
Yeah, and the intent last year was to get them to accept the more amount.
Yeah.
And that's why it was split that way.
Okay.
All right. Anyone care to make a motion?
Question.
I'll make a motion to approve Article 5 as written.
Okay, and,
Second.
okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so let's see, we got
You usually abstain on that? School budget?
school
I
budget?
do.
Okay, so
Okay.
Paul's going to abstain.
So never
on that.
mind.
You're gonna stay
So we have
10:01.
nine,
nine,
and one.
one opposed and one
Oh, we had one
abstain.
opposed. What was
Yeah.
that?
Okay. Next, Article 6, which is the article that we submitted, that we, the citizens of Spencer, submitted by petition to accept the meals tax.
So again, there's no question on the ballot related to this. It's a simple majority vote of town meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
I'll third it.
Okay, and any additional discussion on that?
Did we want to write anything for, is there a paper they're going to receive where we can write
Well,
that we're
someone has to
recommending?
present.
No, you
Yeah,
can get up and
because-
talk
Right,
if
but
you
we know,
want.
you can,
You can write a paragraph,
sometimes
yeah.
we write a paragraph and attach it,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe we should do that and just put it underneath the article when it gets printed.
What's your deadline for the book?
The next day or two, 24 hours.
24 hours?
Yeah, what you've done in the past is Mary's crafted a paragraph, and then I think if everyone's comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
It won't be printed here, we would read it.
Well, no, it's been
sometimes
printed.
we get it printed, it depends.
You did that last year with the school, but when it was a split vote, there was a paragraph that you had in the warrant booklet that said, those of us that voted against it,
Oh, I thought
the
we
reason we
just
voted
read it.
against
No,
it
and
was
then we-
because
and
there
then we-
wasn't enough adequate
Thought we just
information in
read it.
terms of positions and blah, blah, blah.
But then we
That was
said
the
it
paragraph.
again, too. We did say it.
So maybe we could do the same here.
We
then
could,
that-
I will, but,
My recommendation from you is to get from them what you would like
yeah,
to say.
email me
Well,
as
how about-
fast as you can, what you want me to include.
I would do
in
it, I would do it now in an open meeting, Mary,
Oh, you would? Oh, okay.
because then you're having discussion in terms of, and then you're.
Oh, I wasn't thinking about this, oh, okay.
I would do it now and just say, you know,
I was thinking about,
what your intent was, what it does, why you
Okay.
recommend approval,
All
that
right.
kind of thing.
Well, didn't
Okay.
you cover that in the letter to the, to the board?
Yep.
Yeah.
Why don't you just, you know,
Pull those.
shorten
Did
that?
letter.
Oh,
Yeah, shorten
Why
that.
don't you include that it was, I don't know if it said in there, 116,000.
it didn't
Use a
say,
different
'cause
number.
we had a different number, because we didn't know what the real number was.
Okay, but I mean, last year we could have collected,
Yeah,
and it would mean pennies to people and all of that. I mean, I
Okay,
think
so
your letter was good, but.
just edit.
Edit the letter in
that
terms of the
letter down.
recommendation,
and
the reason behind why we asked it was because of this.
Mm-hmm.
That worked.
Being creative. That's what we're supposed to be,
Okay.
Well,
creative.
we've given 75 cents to Lester, keep it in town here.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further and a note to to put a statement in there. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Article 7. This is the town
Okay.
budget.
So the town's budget, when I go to the budget, you will see, I go to the pro forma for expenses, you see this number 8.8 million. This 8.8 million is directly tied to department requests. So here, so when I start with line item 122, which is our account number for the Board of Selectmen, and I go through all these accounts, adding everything up in the very right-hand column for the FY15 budget, when I get to the very end, excluding enterprise funds, I get this 8.8 million. So that's the cost of general government for this year, okay? 8.8 million. Now, in terms of our pro forma, in terms of our revenues and our expenses, using the additional 100,000 from meals tax, we now have a $484,000 shortfall. That 484,000 needs to be applied to that 8.8. We can't apply it to the school district's request, right? So what we've done is, I've drafted 2 articles. One is for 8.370, and the second is the 484. Add those together, you'd get the 8.8. Okay? So the reason for that would happen is if the Article 8 does not pass for the 484, you would eliminate these things from the budget, tells you what's not going to be in there, and then you can move forward with Article 7 on July 1st as approved. Okay? If I had it all in one article, and the override failed, we'd have to come back for a special town meeting and reduce authorization from 8.8 to 8.370. So rather than have that whole process have to coordinate and the cost of doing a special town meeting, it's segregated into 2 different articles. Okay?
Are these articles, are the override articles going to be on the regular May ballot, right?
Correct, the annual election.
Okay.
Yeah. So this article here, Article 8, which is the second of the 2 budget articles, we have the 8.3 and then the 484. This is the exact same language that's on the ballot for that number. These are the same items, the same dollar amounts.
So 2 are off.
Yeah, go ahead, that's great.
So in Article 8, Highway Department should say 49,000, 48, and Town Clerk should say 29.
Oh,
If you're matching the first question.
yeah, I got you.
I don't know which one.
Yep, no, I know exactly what I did. I shifted $3,000 there.
So on the question
Yep.
number 1, Highway was
Yep.
48.
I think what I'll do is I'll just,
Huh?
because the ballot's already been,
Well,
no, you're right, I think, so the
always-
ballot's already been set, so what I'll do is I'll just, when I make the
Because I
motion,
always check.
I'll submit a different motion than what's in here, just shifting that $3,000 back.
Should give you my taxes.
All right. Anyone, motion on Article is there a motion on Article 7?
Make a motion to approve?
Okay.
Second.
Okay, and any further discussion, questions, comments? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, Article 8. Anyone,
Make a motion to accept it with those $2 figure changes.
Second.
Okay, any questions, comments, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unanimous. Article 9. This is the water department?
Correct. Article 9 is the water department's budget. Any questions on that?
All right. Motion on the water department budget?
Motion to
article?
accept Article 9 is written.
Okay.
Second.
Who seconded?
Tom.
Tom? Any further comments, discussion, et cetera? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, unanimous. Article 10, sewer department.
Same
correct?
thing, sewer department budget, as approved by the commissioners.
I'll make a motion to approve Article 10.
I'll
Okay,
second.
all right. Any further discussion? Comments, questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unanimous approval. And then Article 11.
Article 11 is the assessment for Baypath. This is the minimum local contribution. I should say there's no additional local, that's what I should say.
Okay.
So it includes their operating assessment, transportation, the buy-in debt, which is our 8th of 10 years, 2 years left, and the capital debt, which now includes 2 years worth of borrowing. They borrowed it's a $75 million project. I think 20-something was going to go back to the towns. They borrowed, certain portions in that, first year. They didn't borrow all $75 million at once, is what I'm saying. So last year, the number was about 45,000 or so. Now this year, because they borrowed more money, that number went up. But that's part of the debt exclusion number.
Motion on the Bay Path budget?
Make a motion we accept it as written.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Any further questions, comments, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unanimous.
Article
13.
12. Article 12. Article 12 is our obligation for an assessment for an out-of-district, non-resident student to attend Smith Agricultural.
Okay.
Since representative is just one student.
This is one student. $46,000.
Yeah, and no,
Don't get me wrong.
I'd like to.
no help with transportation?
We get a certain percentage of transportation back in next year's budget.
Right, oh, I know that, I'm sorry,
We
that's
get a
not what I
certain
meant.
portion
I
of
meant
Chapter 70
no
to go to the
carpooling,
21,000,
No,
but it's not anywhere close to these
Right,
numbers.
but I mean, what I meant was nobody else is,
There's only one student.
there's only one kid going and nobody between here
Right,
and
the
there.
sharing situation we have is on the next two items.
Okay, all right.
There's no sharing here.
All right, a motion on Article 12, which is Smith,
Motion to approve it as written.
okay?
Second.
And any further discussion? All in
I
favor?
think They said, the people from Bay Path said they might have a program
Yep.
with Tufts. Is that next year?
No,
No.
they're just
Oh.
beginning to
Oh,
work
it's
on
not.
it. They're
And again,
working
and that's
to
gonna
get
be a
legislation.
specific, wasn't that veterinary only?
Hmm?
Isn't that veterinary only, not technically agricultural?
You were talking
They
Were
were
they?
talking-
Yeah, they
Okay.
were talking,
a few years down the road, though.
yeah.
Okay.
Right, they were talking to Tufts, but, and it was, they were working with Dan Goby
Yep.
to do something
Yep.
right. All right, so, all in favor of approving Article 12? Please say aye. Anybody
Aye.
opposed? All right, unanimous.
Oh,
We have a motion?
Article,
I was all set to.
yeah, we have a motion.
Okay.
You didn't hear me say aye, did you?
No, I didn't.
Oh, not opposed? Did you, if you're opposed, speak up.
Reluctantly.
Won't say unanimous if it's not.
Reluctantly.
All right.
Want that, a paragraph about that?
As written, should I put as written reluctantly?
Yeah.
Reluctantly as written?
Finance committee reluctantly supports this
Yeah.
item.
Actually, it's the next one that bugs me even more.
Yep, me too.
The Tantasco one?
Yeah, simply because that should be strictly just a maximum of school choice money and you get your butt there on your own. You know,
That's the same case for,
they
that's,
work their way around the system
Yeah.
to be able to all of a sudden turn this into one of these unfunded mandates where we've got other kids from the same school district going to Tantasco to their school choice, and we're paying far less than what this is.
Yeah.
what I would say is,
Well, no.
thank God these
choice
three
not
students
to.
are going to Tantasco and not to Smith.
True. Well,
That's
you
true.
wanna look at it that
Just-
way.
That's true.
This is 3 students in this one?
There's
Yeah.
3 students.
But if you pay for Smith, if you
Silver
pay, I mean, it's,
I'm a glasses half full
no matter
kind
how
of
many
guy.
kids you put on the bus to Smith, that
Pardon?
price, if you, is the charge for Smith and Norfolk, are those per pupil or per vehicle? So if you had 3 kids going to Northampton, it would be the same, the transportation price.
If we had 3 kids going from Smith to there, it'd probably cost us a little bit more because they would go to different houses, right?
We just buy them a cheap car.
And we could buy them a cheap car.
Yeah.
In the case of Article 14, that number's, the cost is 18,000. That's our share of a student from Dudley, 2 students from Charlton, and a student from Spencer getting picked up. You know, one van goes to that area, one van goes to Spencer, they meet together in, say, Charlton, and then they jump on the Pike in Sturbridge
Yeah.
and go from there, or
Yeah.
Worcester, or whatever. So that's our portion of 4 students going to that school. Yeah.
So that helps. Okay, Article 13. Anyone care to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay. Anyone care to second that motion? Whispering that down
Speak
there?
up, Chris. Did you second?
Can make it as-
Any further, maybe we don't want any further
No,
discussion.
we
Any
don't,
further
no.
discussion, comment? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
One.
Two.
Okay, two, okay,
Okay,
3, I'm opposing.
three, okay.
let's
So-
make a statement, 4 and.
5.
5. Okay, do we hear 6?
So 6 in
5?
favor, 5 opposed, is that right?
I'm not understanding that.
If you don't pay this, they'll take it out of our free cash.
Right,
Yeah, right, so like, we have to pay it.
You have to pay it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
But
but you
we
don't have
can-
to be happy about it.
right. You can oppose it in principle.
Well, then keep it at 6 to
Right.
5, so you vote, recommend approval, but you have 5 people that are angry.
There you go.
Okay, we'll do that, 6 and 5.
How's that? Make a statement.
There we go.
I mean, how else are you gonna do it if you don't make,
right.
you know, if you don't mention, you know, put this out there? Because if they couldn't, if, like
We don't want
Adam,
to look like we're gonna rubber stamp everything,
and
you know.
Adam
No,
filed,
they
you
have
know,
a
worked on
10
getting that legislation. What's gonna support Adam's plea for the legislation
That's
if
why I went.
we
Fair
keep
enough. Yeah, that's,
passing it
as I
unanimously?
said, I didn't understand, but now I do.
Yeah,
That's actually a good point.
right,
If it's Overview and Tasker, let them find their own ride to get over there.
yeah.
It's not that far.
They don't have to.
No, not
Because of the
with
way
this.
it's written by
By
the
law-
state,
by law.
we have to supply the
Right.
transportation.
Because they're going to
Oh,
a
I see.
VOC program,
Okay.
not a regular school
Yeah.
choice program,
It's not
even though
school
they're going
choice.
to the same place.
The unfortunate part is these are all unfunded mandates, and,
Right.
you know, if it wasn't for the fact that the state is, you know, basically cut $1 million out of what they used to give us, but still require that we have to follow the letter of the law on this,
Mm.
you know, it's a little,
Disingenuous.
twice.
Yes.
it does.
Yeah, it does.
Stealing from everybody else.
All right, Article 14, which is the Norfolk
Yeah, one's due.
Ag. So, anybody can make a motion?
Motion to approve is written.
Okay. Any second?
Second. Let's just keep going.
Okay.
Burn through these.
And
Do we wanna
any
do it?
further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay.
Oh, that's right, 5 to 6 again, right?
Okay, so
No.
3, 8
I
to
don't
3.
mind the agricultural schools, it's fantastic.
Fantastic. All right, so how many, all right, how many?
8 approved, 3 disapproved.
Okay. And Article 15.
Article 15 is your very limited capital plan. Usually this lists like 7 or 8 items, but because our free cash, we used 400 of it in the fall to balance the budget, and then we used another 207 in Article 1 for snow and ice and a couple other items. There's not much left for capital. Most important thing the board felt was the town hall boiler and removal of the underground oil tank as they convert to gas. That's the most important thing, is we had multiple breakdowns over the winter, so it's time.
Wouldn't it be cheaper to just buy everybody a fur coat? Everybody who works in town hall?
Don't get
All
me
right,
going,
Sure,
Mary.
then you have all the animal people.
Don't go there, Mary. Don't
A
go
faux
there.
fur. Anybody, all right, motion on Article 15, capital?
Motion to approve is written.
Second.
In that case, you're putting it on the backs of the employees again, literally,
Ba-dum-bum.
pun intended.
Is that Tom Parker?
That was.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, unanimous. Article 16.
Article 16, we have a few $1,000s in an account to repair the stair treads here in Town Hall, which obviously is a liability. We have $932 remaining in a $65,000 account that was used to make repairs to the library roof. We have a little bit of money left over. We'd like to transfer that remaining money into the stair treads account so that we have enough money to cover an increased quote and also any possible change orders or things that you find once you tear up the stair, such as rotted wood. You may need a little bit of contingency money there, so that was what that would be for.
I'll make a motion, we accept Article 16 as written.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Article 17.
Article 17 is the Water Department's capital plan. They have $225,000 approximately in retained earnings, or their version of free cash. They'd like to take 200 of that, use it for a capital efficiency plan. They actually have a plan, Nancy, that they have in terms of making improvements to certain sections of town, certain lines, certain hydrants have to be repaired, et cetera. So this would be applied to that, and then the $25,000 that's remaining would then roll over to next year retained earnings.
Okay, motion?
Make a motion to approve Article 17 as written.
Okay,
Second?
all right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Article 18.
Article 18, the sewer department would like to move $130,000 out of retained earnings. They have $137,000 approximately to fund sewer system repairs and upgrades at the treatment plant, collection system, and pump station. What they did was they borrowed $1.9 million or they have a capacity to borrow $1.9 million to do major improvements. The bids, when they came in higher, so they'd like to take some retained earnings and apply it to that gap, in addition to reducing the scope to lower that gap even more. I think you heard the sewer commissioners explain that when they were here that night. The $7,000 in additional retained earnings would roll over to the following year's retained earnings.
Make a motion to accept Article 18. as written.
Okay,
Second?
all right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unanimous again. Article 19.
Article 19 is a program or project by the Assessors Department. They'd like to transfer $12,000 out of overlay surplus. Explain the overlay surplus, what that is at the beginning tonight, and use that to perform a relisting and valuation of all existing personal property, which is equipment and commercial industrial properties.
All right. Okay. Anyone can make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve it as written.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion?
I have a quick question.
Yep.
How often do they do that, and what do they expect the net benefits of the town to be?
So what happens is that just like real property, land, buildings, they need to apply a value to those in order to then apply the tax rate to then figure out what your tax bill is. The same thing with personal property. So, you know, I don't know when the last time it was done, whether it was 3 years or 5 years, and I don't know, I don't know off the top of my head if they do it every 3 years or 5 years. It's actually the first time since I've been here, and I've been here 4 years in this position, that they've done this. So what they need to do is they need to update what you have in you may have bought new equipment, you may have gotten rid of new equipment, or gotten rid of equipment, and you made a reduction. So what they need to do is basically audit the values that they have set for everybody's personal property in terms of what they have, in order to then apply a tax bill to that, so. Yeah.
Is that automobiles? Or-
No, personal property is, so if I own a machine shop, it's all the equipment that I have within that building.
It's all commercial use and industrial use. I get a bill from the city of Worcester every year for $12
Like your
or something
computers and your
for
typewriters.
my computer.
Furniture,
Coffee
fixtures.
paper.
Yeah.
And then they send you, they'll send out assessment requests, what do you have?
We can change
Some
this.
people will answer them, some won't, and they'll make guesses.
Okay, any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unanimous. Article 20.
Article 20 is the borrowing for the Spencer East Brookfield Regional School District to allow them to move forward to purchase the computers. So if the town of Spencer votes to approve this article, and the town of East Brookfield votes to approve that article, regardless of how you're going to pay for it, whether in your budget or through a debt exclusion, it would allow them to move forward and borrow that money and make these purchases.
Now, is this the one that last night you were talking about whether it should be tied to a debt exclusion or not?
We did tie it to a debt exclusion. But yes, there was a question in terms of could you craft the language like you do in an override and actually add a sentence in here that says contingent upon acceptance of a debt exclusion. But you can't do that.
Okay.
Motion to approve Article 20.
Okay. All right, any further discussion, questions, comments, et cetera? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I would like to see what they're gonna do first. That's my opinion.
What is the
You just don't
plan?
ask for money if
You
you don't have a
mostly-
plan.
Okay.
Okay. Any other, so 9 in
9 to
favor,
2.
2 opposed? Okay. All right. Article 21,
Article 21 is to sell a portion of land that is in between, or actually it's on town property, not the highway garage. It would be a sliver of land that we would transfer ownership to the abutting property, which is Charlie's Diner. It's a 2,283 square foot property. It's a sliver of land, say approximately 2 feet in the front that goes all the way back several hundred feet to a point. And we had a third-party appraisal done that assigned a value to that. The person looking to make the purchase put money in escrow for us to hire a third-party appraisal, who then worked for the town to come up with a dollar amount. This article would allow or authorize the town to move forward with that sale based on that appraised value.
and the land's only good to you, the town, and the...
We could certainly sell it to someone else, but it wouldn't have the same value.
But don't we do this every year? It seems like we're giving...
This is the second time we've done this. No, we've done a lot of drainage easements, which is different.
No, but I mean,
This is the second time we did this. The last time was in 2007.
this is for the restaurant down there.
Correct.
Yeah, Charlie's
This
Diner.
is the second or the third time.
Yeah, we did it once for...
Giving them land, right?
Correct, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
What
It's the
happened?
first time we put a value on it.
Well, the articles don't set, the other one had an appraisal value too. It was, yeah. I don't remember the dollar amount, but yeah, it did have that, because I use the same appraisal.
Is the appraised value what Charlie's is willing to pay for it, or was it just identified?
That's by law, that's what we have to sell.
Okay.
So it's not negotiable.
But I mean, he's not getting it for nothing.
Correct, it's gonna be a dollar a square foot, 22.83.
Okay. I make a motion we accept it as written.
Second.
All right, any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Article 22.
Article 22 and Article 23 are pilot agreements for solar panel farms. One is off of Treadwell Drive, that is 2.5 megawatts in Spencer. And then there's another portion that's in East Brookfield, I think a similar megawattage. And then Article 23 is the one that's on the Abbey property, which is 17.5 megawatts on approximately 100 acres. So again, what this does is authorize the assessors to set a particular payment schedule for these two properties up to a period of 20 years.
Okay, anyone care to make a motion on Article 22?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Any further questions, comments, discussion?
Did they ever do the comparison? I mean, you said it's gonna be a set amount for 20 years, and they're gonna come up with what that amount is.
Yep.
So, did they,
I can tell you in Article 22, it's $10,910 per megawatt. So times 2.5 is approximately $27,000. And you multiply that over 20 years, and whatever that ends up being, 585 or something. And then what you'd have to do is, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but well, we can have it for town meeting. What you'd have to do is then say the value of this property, the minute it's constructed, is $3 million. Then you'd have to apply a depreciation rate over that 20-year period, and then you'd have to assume a certain tax rate that you would apply to that value as it changes every year, and then you'd have to come up with a dollar amount.
and did you do that?
We did. I don't have it in front of me, but yeah.
And how did that compare to 27,000?
It's going to be less. The 585 is definitely less. Again, the benefit here is the exchange here, the quid pro quo, is that they are going to get a reduced amount, but we get the guarantee of payments for that 20-year period. So if they close up in 10 years and go away, they're still on the hook.
Yeah, but won't the price of electricity just keep going up? You know, I mean, that's all it seems to
It doesn't matter. The only thing we're focused here on in terms of tax assessment is the value of the property. We don't care how much money they're making. We don't care what the dollar, or whether it's 13 cents per kilowatt that they're selling, or it's 8 cents per kilowatt that they're selling. That has nothing to do. This is strictly how we're going to tax these properties. So what the government is trying to do, the governor is trying to do through sustainable initiatives, is provide for an avenue to get these projects built such that they'll convert the energy that's out there from non-green energy, non-renewable sources to renewable sources. And this is one way to do it. The incentive here is obviously to work out an agreement between the town. The town, without giving up everything, is getting a guaranteed payment, whether the project ends up being fulfilled over that 20-year period or not.
But right now, the town really needs the money, so if you really got a large amount of money over the next, say, 5 years, wouldn't that be helpful?
What can happen is, well, a lot happens with these developers, they're doing 10 projects at once in 10 different communities, and they're not gonna build every single one. What they're gonna do is they're gonna build the ones that are gonna be, that they're gonna make money on. So if you de-incentivize them, you know, over that period of time, and then another town is offering a pilot agreement, and that town's gonna get 20 years of guaranteed payments, they're gonna do that project
You want to
instead.
go after the more attractive one.
Absolutely.
Is what you're saying.
Right. These companies are big companies, a lot of money behind them, and what they're doing is, like I said, they're doing 10 projects or more at once, in hopes that, you know, the most favorable one to move forward with. So there's a chance that these two projects won't ever be built. That we've had, these are probably the 5th and 6th projects in town, and only one's been built. That's the one on Wilson Street. We had 2 other ones that were approved that were never built. There was one on North Brookfield Road. I can't remember the other one. That were actually permitted through the planning board and not built at all.
Why weren't they built?
Because they chose to, maybe timing-wise, another project came online first. There's been a change in terms of the tax credits structure. There was an original program called SREC, solar credits, offered by the state, and then there's now into SREC 2 program. The SREC 2 is not as favorable as the SREC 1, so a lot of people were quick to jump in to SREC, if it was an SREC 1 project, do those, and then if I had projects that were in the pipeline, SREC 2, I got away. But these 2 projects are SREC 2 projects, so.
Yeah, because I have a friend that's a contractor, he said he does this, and it's very lucrative for these companies. You know, the best plan would be for the town to be they self-fund it and keep the lion's share of the revenue. You're only getting a tiny sliver from these companies. They're making a fortune off it.
Yep.
But, you know, it takes money to make money.
Exactly. And we don't have it.
Yeah.
So, okay, so all in favor of approving Article 2?
22?
22, I mean?
Oh,
Recommended
yeah.
to
Do we
approve
have a
Article
motion?
22?
Had a
Yeah.
motion by
Yep.
Bill
Motion
Wall,
by
second
Bill-
by Paul.
Yep. I know it's on it. Okay, any further questions, comments, discussion? In that case, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, unanimous. And Article 23, which is the same, same thing, different location.
I make a motion, we accept Article 23 as written.
Second.
Okay. And second?
Tom?
Oh, Tom second, sorry. All right, any further questions, comments, discussion?
How much money per year on this one?
Same, is what,
What is
the
that?
10-9. Well, no, it's 10, the benchmark that we're looking at is the 10-9, and that would be times the 17.5,
So 10.9 per kilowatt hour
correct.
per year? Yeah, per kilowatt hour per year?
Megawatt.
Oh, per megawatt. Okay. All right, any other questions? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, unanimous again, and that's it.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
When this meeting started, I didn't think anybody would be saying that tonight.
So what are you doing on the
It's on the wall.
23rd?
All right, so
Just-
here's
Just
my
one
calendar.
second before, just
is-
before we adjourn,
so this is
just
the week
remind
of-
everybody, so the next,
We haven't adjourned yet.
we haven't adjourned, just one quick second. So the next time we officially meet at this point will be May 1, the annual town meeting?
May 2nd, we have?
May 1. I put down the wrong date.
Oh, you
It's-
did,
Yeah,
okay.
it's Thursday,
May
May,
1st,
it's
yeah.
Thursday, May 1, is the annual town meeting, and I want to remind everybody to show up at that, not you guys, people out who are watching on TV. And the
Well, yeah.
town
And us too.
election is
Yeah,
May 8th.
show up.
And if we need, for any reason, to meet, again, you know, we'll just do what we've done in the past and meet half an hour before the annual town meeting. Okay, any other questions, comments? All right, now, John, go ahead.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you all for coming.